Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined this week by my good friends from the DVC store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello, everybody.
Joining us via Skype, Mr. Paul Krieger.
Hey, everyone.
And back on the controls, our producer, Mr. Corey Fiasconaro.
Welcome home.
And before we get started, just a reminder, this show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. And if you are interested in picking up a resale contract for Disney Vacation Club and saving some money, interested in renting out DVC points for a future Walt Disney World Resort stay, or stay in Aulani or in Vero Beach or Hilton Head, or if you're looking to sell your contract and maybe upgrade to something new, give them a call, 1-800-550-6493, or visit them online at dvcstore.com. So this week, we are going to talk about the future of direct benefits in a post-COVID-19 world. And this was something that Paul suggested, and I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm going to let him start it off, though. So go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, sure. So my thought process here was, in looking at what things are going to look like at Walt Disney World after we emerge from this crisis, one lingering question in my mind has been, is becoming a Disney Vacation Club member through a direct contract going to be as worthwhile? Are the benefits going to be there? Specifically, a couple things that I think we should talk about. Moonlight Magic, that's a big kicker for a lot of people when it comes to their choice of buying direct. I will be honest, I bought direct due to FOMO, fear of missing out. I don't necessarily think that financially it's the best decision, even long term when you factor in the other things. But you've got Moonlight Magic, you've got your annual pass discount. What are other discounts going to look like? And last but not least is looking forward in time. We've discussed a lot on this show about that are focused around Riviera. Those we assumed were going to continue on to Reflections, but with a very, very strong rumor that Reflections has been shelved indefinitely. It sort of raises the question of, do we need to worry about resale restrictions? Are they even as much of a concern right now?
Well, let's excellent points, and I want to talk about all of them, but I want to start by talking about Reflections, because one of the big things that had DVC members up in arms last year when they announced that starting with Riviera and moving forward with future DVC resorts, that you would not be able to, if you bought your resale after January 15th, 2019, something like that, that you would not be able to use those points your resale points at Riviera or any future resort. And of course I did. I bought mine. I bought my first contract in early March, I believe it was, of 2019. So I fall into that category. I do have direct points as well, but most of my points, the majority of my points, are all resale points purchased after that. So I'm definitely affected by not being able to use my existing points, my existing resale points at Riviera. And of course, Reflections, as Paul mentioned, there's a very strong rumor right now, I think it's almost bordering on more than strong, that the whole Reflections thing has been scrapped. And I just want to provide some historical context. Disney was in the process of expanding Pop Century in 2001. I think it was going to be the Generations building or something like that. I forgot which building it was going to be. But they had already built the structure when 9/11 happened. And that structure ended up sitting idle, empty, for years until they folded it into Art of Animation. And we used to joke and we used to call it Sarajevo because that's what it looked like. It was out like in this dirt field by itself, no windows, no structure inside, just the shell of the building. And that was after the financial hit Disney took at 9/11 on 9/11 as a result of 9/11, which is paltry in comparison to the financial hit they have taken now. I think it is going to be years before we see a new DVC resort built. I think it's going to be a long time. And I think, depending on how much changes as a result of COVID-19, I think they're going to have very little choice but to remove these resale restrictions in order just to get the dues that they're going to need to cover the expenses that they have. They can't. It's not the world we were in January of last year, and I don't think it's ever going to be that world again. When are they going to be able to do? I mean, will Moonlight Magic come back? Maybe. Not anytime soon. Not just because of social distancing and restrictions, but it is a totally free party given to members that DVC pays for. They pay for it out of the contracts they sell directly. They can't use dues for that. So, are they going to throw these $500,000 parties 4 times a year, 5 times a year anymore? You have to be a direct member. You have to have the blue card. I think those restrictions are going to come back and bite them in the ass in a way none of us could have seen last year when they were announced. But I'm looking the king of resale over here. What do you think?
I don't really know how Disney's going to react. I mean, I've always thought that the restrictions were bogus, and I understand why they do it. You know, they want to have a separation between a direct and resale. Now, the way Disney used to resell up until 2011, from 1992 to 2011, no difference. And then they started implementing these restrictions. But you know, the program was fine. Members, I mean, I guess their direct sales were hurting, and that's why they added these restrictions. But I've always never been a fan. Obviously, I'm a resale broker, so of course I've never been a fan. But I think that, yeah, they're not going to have the Moonlight Magic events. At least they haven't announced that, but I'm just guessing based on the cost, based on social distancing, just the way things are looking. I can't see how they're going to do that. You know, I mentioned the lounges. I mean, even the member lounge would probably get cut just because, again, that's an added cost to them. They have to limit the number of people, social distancing, things like that. So I don't know. I mean, these resale restrictions, I'd like to see them go, but I'm not sure, you know, how Disney's going to react to this post-COVID or current COVID situation.
Paul?
I think that in looking at Disney, they have a very, very bad problem, which is that if we look at all of these direct benefits, specifically Moonlight Magic, specifically the annual pass benefits that you get, the discounts that you get on property, those are strong selling points for buying direct. And if those get negated, if Moonlight Magic goes away, if we do see, I mean, like Jerry said, the resale restrictions have been to push direct sales, but if they go backwards on it, then that just bolsters resales. So they're in a very weird position where I don't feel that they have a good solution to this, and I don't think that they have a good path forward. And I think if anything, it just further bolsters the resale market.
Well, and let's also take a look at the fact that since everything happened with COVID. Jerry, how many contracts have been bought back and right of first refusal?
So, it's funny is I wrote a blog about Disney and, difficult times and how their right of first refusal usually kicks in to protect the pricing. But pricing's been fine, but they just haven't bought anything back. March 30th was the last buyback we had. I mean, today's the 18th of June, so we haven't had a buyback. 19th of June, so we haven't had a buyback in several months. So, they're still working a remote staff or a skeleton crew. I do feel when they reopen and member administration is full staff, they may be back into buying back contracts, but they haven't since they furloughed a lot of their cast members until they bring them back. So it should be interesting after July or whenever they're back to full staff to see what happens.
Well, I also want to point out, you've mentioned this a few times that, that resale prices really haven't been hit as a result of COVID-19, at least not at this point. I can say the same thing is true for the median home price of homes here in Orlando. In fact, they went up in May, not down. So
I do. I'm not to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, but I do feel like the buyers in the market are really trying to hammer a low offer or a deal, thinking that sellers are desperate. Like, that's not necessarily the case. So just understand that market has adjusted slightly. There are some deals to be had, but somebody listing at $140 a point is not taking an offer of $85 a point, and we are getting offers like that, and it's just a waste of time. So just be aware that there might be a shift, but it's not ridiculously low. Just prices might have slid slightly.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that it's not it's not the bottom falling out the way everybody thought it was going to be of the real estate market, whether that's in timeshares or in homes. I mean, I really, I know you're saying that when they reopen, that you may see more buybacks. I wonder, though. I really do. Are they going to want to be spending that money right now? Are they going to want to be spending that money right now? I mean, they have to. I think they may, in extreme circumstances, if somebody does try to sell a Grand Floridian for $85 a point, you may see them buy that back. But I wonder, I mean, if they're having to scrap, assuming it's true, right now it's still a rumor. It's a very, very good rumor. It's a very well-sourced rumor. If it's true that they're pulling reflections, that's a money decision. Plain and simple. That's not we changed our mind. Or, we think we'll build something else. No, that's a money decision. So if they're making decisions like that, go ahead, Fiasco.
And you just got to look at Walt Disney World right now. There is so much construction going on with hotels at EPCOT, even at Magic Kingdom with Tron and that whole area back there in Tomorrowland. There's so much going on, and they're going to need to make some tough calls. And they're going to be, money decisions. Disney is a huge business, makes a lot of money every year, but I'm sure they're hurting right now really bad as well.
Well, it's costing them, I think one estimate I saw is costing them $40 million every day the parks are closed.
Insane.
Okay, and we're into 3 months now, at the point that we're recording this. But yeah, in terms of that though, in terms of the construction projects that are already underway, that are going to impact crowd sizes for the 50th anniversary, you are not going to see them pull the plug on that. You're not going to see it. Unless things get really, really bad. They are still, where they're, let's please God, let's hope by October of next year when the 50th happens, that, we're in the post-COVID-19 world. They're certainly hoping for that. They're going to they got to make this money up somewhere. Okay? They got to make this money up somewhere. 50th anniversary is their next big chance to do that. So they're not going to pull any of those construction projects. Reflections, yeah. Now look, sales for Riviera weren't gangbusters before COVID-19. I don't think it's gonna I don't think it's going to. Do you think that sales for Riviera will change as a result? If in fact Reflections is gone, Paul.
I don't know that it's really going to impact sales of Riviera. But what we saw on the horizon was that Riviera was not selling at a fast enough rate for it to actually be sold out. We know that Copper Creek and Riviera overlapped, but that period of time was very minimal. But the overlap period between if Reflections had been completed on time and Riviera selling out was, I think, 2 years or so. So you know that they don't want to have two DVC resorts really actively competing against each other at Walt Disney World during that period of time. And I think if we just look at what has been the prevailing opinion in our groups, I feel that most people weren't overly excited about Reflections. My theory was that they slapped some Disney characters on a hotel. But we know that people are very excited about the Disneyland Tower out in California. So if you're Disney and you've got money to spend, where do you want to direct that resource immediately? And they're doing that out in Disneyland, it appears.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance they're going to pull the plug on that project. That's going to sell out in about, about 20 minutes. That is going to completely sell out. You're not going to be able to touch that once it does. There's such a built-up demand there. Because they only have one DVC location in California, and that's the Grand Californian.
And a tiny one at that, 48 villas.
Right, yeah, it's really small.
Yeah.
And if we get back into the whole resale restriction discussion, I think they've gone too far, and I'm not quite sure that they're going to back down on that. But the resale restrictions felt more restricting if you had Riviera and Reflections in Walt Disney World, both affected by those restrictions. If you take Reflections out of that picture and you just say it's Riviera and now the new Disneyland Tower in California, it doesn't hurt people as much in the Walt Disney World bubble that they can't use Riviera. It's only one resort that is now affected by that. So those don't feel as bad as they did before.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. It's what this is going to look like really on the other side. But I think a lot of we've talked about the member lounges, we've talked about Moonlight Magic, we've talked about some of the other perks that go along with buying direct, that are probably not going to be factors for the next couple of years, or at least the next year. They're going to have to make a decision on how they're going to appeal. First of all, they're going to have fewer people in the parks with the restrictions to directly sell to at the kiosks and things like that. That's where they do a lot of those direct sales. Somebody goes up to the kiosk, says, "What is this?" Cast member at the kiosk gives them a little pitch, makes an appointment. They send a van to pick them up at their hotel. That's where they do a lot of those. They're not going to have that. They're going to have to do something if they want to stimulate direct sales. And the best, quickest thing they could do, stop putting these restrictions on it. Stop making those direct points. Stop creating this class system. Become a little bit more competitive with the resale market. And I know you don't want to hear that, but go ahead, Paul.
Pete, you brought this up in a live show we did not too long ago, but I really think that the current crisis environment really exposes that resale is a very good value for the average vacationer, given what we know the new Walt Disney World environment is going to look like. We are not even sure what hotels are going to be open and what resorts are going to be available to guests, but we do know that DVC is open, and we know that there's a lot of availability out there, and buying a resale contract could be a lot more appealing to the family that maybe vacations every 2 years or so, rather than playing this unknown game.
Well, I mean, look, I had a hard time justifying the difference in price between buying a resale contract and buying direct as it was. But now with a lot of those, I think the only thing they can do is lose those restrictions and start embracing resales the way they used to.
Yeah. So again, I was saying from 92 to 2011, it was all the same. And prices, the gap between direct to resale was it was like a $10 spread. So people would justify buying direct because they wanted to buy from Disney, but it was very competitive between the two. So yeah, you kind of mentioned it. If they were more competitive with the resale market, then maybe people would just go to Disney and buy direct, even, because they want to buy from Disney,
Do you think we could see a reversal in prices? What are we at now? 210?
188, but they have some promotions, but I think 188.
But didn't they raise the price last year? End of last year?
I believe they did, because I remember I bought at the 188, but that was because they were raising it within the next few months or whatever.
They raised the prices of the other 14 properties, but I don't think they raised it at Riviera. Or Copper Creek. I mean, actually, Copper Creek did go up right before the sellout.
That's what it was. Right.
But they kept Riviera at 188. So the idea was, why don't you buy at our new property at 188 than buying at Copper Creek, which is at 210 or 220.
Right.
So they tried to lure you into Riviera.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, just to go back to the direct prices, Riviera is now at 195, and Alani is at 193, and those happened at the end of January this year. 210, I think, was, as I think Fiasco alluded to, Copper Creek raised to its sold-out pricing of 210, but we're cruxing on that 200, and my money is on when that Disneyland Tower goes on sale. We'll definitely be over 200 at that point. But depending on what Riviera does, I don't know how many other options they're going to have other than to really bolster the discounts that apply to direct sales. And we've not seen our current incentives for direct sales to Riviera. Those ended in March, and those pages are erased. There's no inkling of discounts right now on the Disney Vacation Club website. It's still a big question mark that I assume will be answered in the coming month or so as to whether or not we'll see some summer discounts related to direct for Riviera.
Well, it should be interesting. I'm sure we will find out more as the months progress. And it was a great topic. I'm really interested to see what ends up happening. So, all right, folks, that is going to do it for our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next week with another edition of the DVC Show. Have a great week.